both please ready?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the round 3 of 2080 World School Debating Championship in Zagreb. Please turn off your mobile phones. Thank you. The motion for this round reads: TH regrets the widespread beliefs that motherhood is a rewarding experience. Debating this round are Team India for proposition and Team Estonia for opposition. The adjudicators for this round are Robin from Nepal, Amira from Malaysia, and Itmina from Sri Lanka. Each speaker has 8 minutes to deliver their speech. The end of the speech will be marked by a double knock. The first and the 7th minute are protected from points of information and will be marked by one knock. The first or the second speaker of each side will deliver a 4 minutes reply speech for their side. There are no points of information during reply speeches. I now invite the first speaker for side proposition to deliver their speech.
In 1998, my mother finished her master's in computer engineering. She finished it with a first class in her college. 2 years later, she was made to marry, and 3 years later, I was born. This is no debate. This is no new debate. It's something we've been fighting in places like India, in places like Sri Lanka, across the developing world, where the pressure to get married is a pressure that takes away from women's choices, from the ability to empower themselves. The belief that women have to get meaning from their motherhood gives birth to an egregious burden that Team India rejects. What do we stand for? When we describe this glorification or this norm and belief that motherhood is a rewarding experience, what does that look like? It looks like an ubiquitous social norm, where women's lives are told to get meaning from motherhood, which glorifies sacrifice, calls it something that's beautiful that women have to make. And it's also something that others believe in, that families believe in, that your parents believe in, that your siblings believe in, that society believes in. Where women grow up, when they're born as girl children, they're given to other children as dolls to play with. Where there's an expectation from employers, from family members that you'll get married and have a child. Where mothers' lives are told to be good if they're only devoted to their children. That a good mother is someone who spends their time running around their child. Remember that this is not a debate about generally parenting being glorified, right? Because it's the kind of burden that's placed uniquely on women. For men, the question often is, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? For women, is, are you going to be a mother, or do you want to have a career? That's something. What would the world have looked like in the absence of such a narrative, right? In the absence of pressure, it looks like the absence of pressure to derive meaning from having a child. Where choices are based often on personal preferences rather than pressures that are placed on you by the people around you. We're not saying that motherhood is bad. We're just saying that we shouldn't automatically assume that it is something that's a part of every woman's life and push them towards it. So 2 things that I'm going to tell you that uniquely derive from motherhood, which is the reason why we regret this. First, women's choices. Second, the kind of burdens that they have to take. The second speaker is going to talk about women without children and how the norms around this hurt specific vulnerable groups amongst women. First argument, motherhood removes women's control over their own selves. 3 ways in which women's choices are hurt. Information, the choice to enter motherhood, and the ability to leave. First, on information. Glorification of motherhood is responsible for the lack of information about it. When it crowds out other information, right? When you don't know what kinds of pain pregnancy induces, when you don't know postmortem depression even exists, where women feel incredibly depressed after they've given delivery. When many women don't even know when they're on the delivery bed that women often defecate during the process of delivery. But also, you don't know about the long term. You don't know that it's going to suck out all your time, your money, and place an incredible familial burden on you. But why is motherhood, the glorification of this norm, responsible for it? Because you grow up with the idea that this is something you have to do. You never seek out information. You're told you don't need this information when this is just something that's automatically assigned to you based on the sex that you were born into. But often this information doesn't exist. When the kinds of family and parents that you talk to never want to talk about this. They just want to tell you how beautiful it is to be a mother, how incredible it feels when your child goes to her first day in school, how incredible it feels when your child does this, when your child does that, but never what it looks like for you. But second, the choice to enter is imaginary. It starts at birth when you're born as a girl child. And the kinds of dolls you get are dolls of children asking you to take care of them. When you're asked constantly when you're getting married, when you go to little girls as uncles in Indian weddings and ask them, oh, when do you want to get married? Or who do you want to marry? What kind of a child do you want to grow up? When it invests itself in tangible things, when literally parents across places like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh give their girl children a humanities education as opposed to a STEM education, because that just perfectly sets them up for that marriage. When there's a familial and societal pressure, right? Because you save up for marriage if it's a girl child, and you save up for college if it's a boy child. It's not just that the narrative often is overwhelming, often becomes an external pressure, but then it physically limits your choice. It physically limits your choice when you quit your career at a crucial age because you can't go back to developing it. It physically limits your choice when your parents give you a specific kind of education because that's what's best suited for motherhood. This is something, again, we see across the developing world. Something that's just so overwhelming, something that's investing itself in every woman's life, and we think that's just disgusting. What with it? It's that it's self-perpetuating. When mothers raise their own girls like this, that if this debate is about children, it's about the little girls who are told this when they grow up. Because boys get the Power Ranger toys and the job options, but girls, right from when they are born, are told by the men in their families that this is what you're going to be. But finally, it removes the choice to leave relationships, to leave families, to leave marriages. Because even saying that you don't enjoy being a mother is something that's shocking. Oh, what? Did you just say that? You're not even allowed to talk about it, right? When you're told, when you can't complain about the housework you make, you can't express your opinions, but you also can't leave a relationship. You have to stay for the children. You have to stay to care for them. You have to stay because it's your role to protect your child. It undermines the choice to get a divorce when you're constantly told that, no, what will happen to your child? What will happen to that boy that's in your house? Remember, the glorification uniquely hurts women and little girls. And irrespective of what kinds of other pressures exist on women, this is something that is intrinsically problematic, something that we always neglect and reject. Before I move on, yes.
The expectation to have children is always going to exist for women. How is it easier for women to deal with this expectation when they are all constantly told that motherhood is not rewarding for them and will be negative?
So let's just rephrase that, right? They're saying, oh, there are other things that contribute to this pressure as well. Then why do we need to remove one of the biggest contributors to it? But the other thing that they're saying in that POI is, oh, we'll oppress you. But you should feel good about it, that you shouldn't complain about it, that you shouldn't get to, that movement shouldn't get to organize against it. Because when a feminist woman questions that, they're questioning something that's so important, so culturally relevant, we reject that. Second, glorification of a mother's sacrifices comes at the cost of her dreams. What is the cost of motherhood? First, a financial and a career trade-off. When you're not allowed to work, when you have to quit a career because you're expecting a child, when you're not allowed to get into a higher studies or pursue a tertiary education for this. But why does this come from motherhood? Because you're raised with this expectation when parental, societal, and opposition's judgment extends to women who choose to prioritize themselves. You can't do what you've always dreamed of. We lose these scientists, these economists, these accountants. But also, you lose financial independence, right? You lose the mobility to leave a motherhood that you've entered at the point which you didn't have a job, at the point which you don't have your own personal savings, and you're entirely reliant on the family. But there are many women who choose not to do this, who would rather choose not to do this. Opposition always forces them into this. Insofar as we save just those women, it's intensely regrettable. But even if sexism always places the pressure to have a child, what else does motherhood, that this concept of motherhood extend to? It extends to not being allowed to have your own hobbies, your own social life. When your entire life is, oh, my friends are my child's friends' mothers. But I can't do the kinds of hobbies that I like because I need to concentrate on my child's hobbies. Even if it's about women who are always going to end up in these marriages, with these same children, they are still women who don't get to have their own lives, their own experiences, and in the least, some mobility and some savings to leave. But the extension of this is the external pressure, right? The external pressure that results in men getting a lesser burden in families. It's saying, oh, women are mothers, so men are fathers. They can do things like taking care of the money, they can do things like taking care of careers, and this places a disproportionate burden on women. They have to take care of the dishes. Even if motherhood is enriching, it becomes not enriching at the point which they don't get the support of others because it's just their burden. The belief that women have to get meaning from their motherhood gives birth to an egregious burden that they reject.
14 seconds. I would like to thank the first speaker of the proposition for their speech and would like to invite the first speaker of the opposition to deliver their speech.
Since they are mothers, they have assigned some positive attributes that they wouldn't have otherwise got unless they had become mothers. That motherhood gave them these positive attributes of being a hardworking person, of being able to self-sacrifice and get out of your comfort zone to prioritize and take care of me as a child, for example. We don't believe that motherhood and motherhood as a rewarding experience for personal development should be something that should be regretted. So firstly in my speech, I'm going to talk about an engaged side propositions case and show how they're debating not a rewarding appreciation motion, but rather a glorification, rather a duty motion, then clarifying this debate up, and then talking about my construction material and the most important things in this debate, which is firstly, how women's societal position is actually much better under our side when mothers are appreciated for doing what they do, and secondly, how we get better parenting and how we get better parents and better feeling parents overall if we appreciate what they're doing. But now firstly, let's clear up this debate. What does exactly rewarding mean? It means that a parent, that a mother is getting some positive benefits out of motherhood. For example, feeling good, getting love in the future from their baby, or feeling that that their baby is giving them some positive emotions, or that they're getting some personal development out of it, that this is an experience that helps them to grow and be a better person. This debate, however, is not about the way the side proposition wants to characterize it and say that females, whether females should be suppressed by the society and should be denied the ability to not have a baby, and they should be denied the ability to get information or education, because obviously we oppose that too. Obviously we believe that females should be able to do whatever they like, but what this debate actually means is that when you decide to have a baby, when you decide that motherhood is good, then we should rather perceive it as an enriching experience, as rather a rewarding experience too, as a society. So now, what did side proposition say? That this is never rewarding, and that glorification harms women and pressurizes them to become mothers, since it basically makes the duty to have children better. Notice, dear panel, that they never actually explain why perceiving mothers as having an enriching experience means that this duty is going anyhow away, or why this duty is made stronger by enriching experience. They never say of how, when we start to perceive motherhood as something negative or neutral, how then this duty is just abolishing. We're going to show you that this duty still exists, and that this debate takes into the context whether we should reward these mothers who are fulfilling that duty, or whether we're not rewarding them. Why does this duty still exist, and why this side proposition to fail to provide with another explanation? Firstly, women will be and are always the persons who are the only ones physically capable of carrying a child, so hence that duty will still exist under their shoulders, not under the male shoulders. They are the ones giving birth. And secondly, all societies, even the most liberal ones, are the ones to pressurize females still into having children and into bringing offspring to their nation. Even Germany pays mothers in order to have like offspring to their nation. So this pressure still exists for these two reasons, and scientific position never showed why this will cease to exist. So let's now talk about why rewarding mothers is good for the societal level, and secondly, why it's better for parenting. First point, no thank you. Rewarding means the females' position in the society will be better because the roles still exist, but we rather want to reward them and make them to see somebody that is not just fulfilling their burden that exists under both sides, but rather somebody who is making that decision themselves, who are strong human beings who make that decision because they believe that this is rewarding for them and they believe that they can gain some personal benefits under that. Firstly, because you're not as strong if you're just fulfilling that duty, but rather we want to perceive females as doing that because they're doing it for themselves. And women are seen as not just doing their duty and being submissive, but rather wanting that baby, and therefore deciding themselves to take that burden, to carry that baby. So for example, New Zealand's Prime Minister just decided to have a baby in the office, and we see it as a positive thing because she wanted to do it, because she feels that this will help her become a better person, help her become a happier person, a better Prime Minister for New Zealand, and we celebrate it. And therefore, the society feels that women are not just simply giving into the pressure the society gives, but rather taking it because they want to. And this is something that we celebrate. Because, for example, when in conscription service, this is a duty that, for example, in some states are for people. We celebrate that the person, it helps a person become a better human being. And therefore, we see that positive attributes are, after doing that duty, given to that person. And the same happens with women who happen to give birth because they're seen as now better and more developed human beings. What are the impacts of this argument? Firstly, it means that females, when they break out of this duty to just give into and be submissive and rather be independent, strong women who make that decision themselves, are much more likely to be perceived as equal with men. Because now they're not dependent on men and doing what men require, but rather doing what they themselves want. And so it makes the society perceive them as stronger, more capable, and hence policies that make their lives easier, such as pay gap policies, or for example, anti-discrimination policies, like the females are not accepted into the same jobs as men, are now not as effective because females are perceived as better, stronger, more equal with men, not having to do that duty. And rather, when they take that duty, it's something for the personal development, taking you in a second, so it's better for the society if we see and perceive females as stronger themselves who want to do it rather than just giving into the pressure.
Oh, is your point that somehow motherhood is appreciated more when it's seen as mothers doing it for their own self-interest?
Yes, we believe that we want women to feel like they're doing something for their own self-interest rather than just giving into some patriarchal policies. This is the fundamental prerequisite of female being empowered, being strengthened, and being perceived as equal to men. We celebrate it. Secondly, how it's better for parenting. Because when parents feel and when mothers feel that they're doing it for their own good and for reward rather than duty, this is better and much more easier for them to for example, be in labor or to be pregnant. Why? Because if I believe this is good for my own being, if I'm pregnant, if I have children, and for example, it brings me happiness and love for my baby in the future, I'm much more happy and ready to carry that 10 hours of very painful labor. Or for example, if I'm pregnant, my ankles are swollen up, and this is extremely painful, and this is much easier to bear if I feel that I'm getting some kind of reward out of this, rather than I'm just doing it for the society, and the society is good because the society requires me to do it. So it helps parents and women to be more able to cope with these extreme hardships, that 18 years of bringing out the baby and caring for that baby and sacrificing yourself for that baby is because you feel that this is a rewarding experience, and the society feels that you're becoming a better person and that you're doing it for your own good, and you yourself believe that it's for your own good. So what it means is that females and mothers are much more happy, and mothers are much more happy to do it, and therefore they're doing the job better, and hence their children, when they're not perceived as a duty but rather as a reward, are much more likely to feel so happy because their mothers want to engage with them, they want to be nicer towards them, and therefore doing their duty better. For all these reasons, because of the societal position, secondly, better parenting, I beg its oppose.
Before we move on, I would like to remind all the speakers to be kindly respectful of the speaker at the podium and when they are discussing their evening.
proposition to do my next speech.
Estonia told us that this debate is not about the kinds of suppression that result to women that don't have children and the pressures on women to have children. Except our argument is that this narrative that motherhood is a rewarding experience perpetuates this kind of suppression, right? At the point where you're raised to believe that this is a completely rewarding experience. You're not given the information of ways in which it could potentially not be rewarding. At the point where it is the basis for your life to derive meaning itself. The fact that your identity and your derivation of meaning as a woman is given exclusively through motherhood. That narrative is the narrative we reject because that causes this kind of societal pressures which Team Estonia doesn't like themselves. Three big ideas that came out of that last speaker's speech. Firstly, that this duty will still be placed on women. Secondly, that this causes an appreciation of mothers for doing what they do. And thirdly, this idea that this narrative leads to better parenting. Let's deal with these one by one. Firstly, on this idea that this duty will still exist, we agree. What we are saying is that this narrative is much worse in terms of perpetuating this duty. That is to say, we agree that on both sides there will be some extension of gender roles. We think those gender roles will be worse on your side. Three reasons. Firstly, the fact that you can't resist at the point where there is no way for you to mobilize against this kind of oppression. Because the justification behind this is, oh, this is good for the women, that's why you can be mothers. Secondly, the fact that these women aren't given the full information of what the harms could be, meaning they don't have an incentive to resist due to the lies and misinformation created by this cultural norm. Thirdly, the fact that this pressure often is imposed by people like men who actually believe that it is a rewarding experience and therefore impose this pressure on women. They think women can't make the best decisions for themselves. They think this is a genuinely good decision to make. Then on the second idea, this causes the appreciation of mothers for doing what they do, and this causes the perception of them as being men. The first thing to note is that insofar as they want to say that this allows them to cope with things like tremendous external pressures, we are happy to respect women in ranges of different professions and occupations for doing what they do. We're happy to extend that kind of respect. That's clearly not what this debate is about, right? But secondly, we don't really think they are perceived as equal in society when what they are expected to do by society is to be a mother, is to not go to work. They are not going to get equal pay at the point where their employer expects them to quit their job early because they have to stay at home and be a parent. But thirdly, on this idea that this creates better policies, we think policies like parental leave are much worse off as far as companies perceive this as, this is a rewarding experience. We don't need to give you more of a reward. This is just a vacation. We don't think those kinds of policies are meaningfully passed on your side. Contrast this then against our argument, the fact that this narrative removes women's control over themselves. They say, oh, women make this choice. This choice is really empowering. We are happy with women making the choice to become mothers. What we said is that in a number of instances, their narrative causes women to be structurally unable to make that choice because of misinformation about these harms, because of the fact that you grew up with the idea that you are meant to be a mother, because when you go to a wedding, you're told, when is your wedding going to be? When are you going to become a parent? No, thank you. These kinds of coercive pressures are perpetuated on their side of the house. Lastly, on this idea that this narrative leads to better parenting because it brings happiness to people. Two issues. Firstly, if women don't choose to become a parent, presumably they might actually be worse parents because eventually they will realize that this is a tremendous strain on them, meaning it's bad for the children. Second, we want children to have good role models, right? We want girl children to realize that their mothers are in a working profession and that is good for them, meaning it's actually good, no thank you, for the children. But what they didn't engage with is that it's destructive to the lives of women, right? At the point where they are deprived of financial independence as a result of their policy. They are deprived of having access to things like friendship, hobbies, having a social life, and that this expectation is a source of unique discrimination against these individuals. Go ahead.
Men oppress women because they perceive them as weaker and because they feel that they have the power, rather than because they believe that this is good and rewarding for women.
The point is that men perceive the notion of motherhood as being a weak profession. We would rather a woman be able to make the choice to not be a mother and go to work, become a business executive. We don't think that would be perceived as weak either. That's the comparative in the long term that we stand for. 2 points of substantive. Firstly, this narrative excludes women who don't have children, and second, this perpetuates the notion of familial blood relations being crucial. First, this narrative excludes women who don't have children. How is this true? Firstly, it undermines reproductive autonomy. It stigmatizes women who do things like have abortions, use contraceptions. Why would you do that? Being a parent is really rewarding. Having a child is really rewarding. That means you're both a child killer and someone who gave up on a rewarding experience for yourselves, which means they never understand the actual reasoning for why women do things like have abortions, do things like seek some kind of reproductive autonomy over themselves. And that kind of narrative constantly re-entrenches itself because now women aren't given autonomy. It perpetuates the notion that women are making bad choices for themselves. It is men who should now be determining women's choices because clearly they're making a terrible choice by having an abortion. This means women are systemically denied access to their choices about reproductive health. But second, it stigmatizes women who are physically unable to have children. People like infertile women who are told that they've been denied the experience which defines their womanhood, who are condemned as barren. We think the impact is that women are systemically denied the ability to make choices about themselves and constantly face stigmatization. On the comparative in our world, we think women are allowed to lead rewarding lives which aren't just based on the idea of them having children. It means they're able to make reproductive choices about their reproductive health, about their ability to have an abortion, to not have children in the long term. Their side leads to more stigmatization of these individuals. Second argument then, this narrative perpetuates the idea that having biological relations with your child is absolutely crucial. In their world, biological motherhood is the unique kind of motherhood which is glorified. 2 reasons why this is true. Firstly, because this glorification looks at the full process of motherhood. It's not just you raising a child, it's you having that child biologically. It's the process of pregnancy, which is significantly glorified. You have to take on the entire burden of having a child. But secondly, the narrative that exists right now is that the reason this is a rewarding experience is you're extending that experience to someone who you consider as your truly own family, your blood, no thank you. Someone who's a part of your family and a part of you who you're now having a shared experience with. Why is this incredibly problematic? 2 sets of reasons. Firstly, women who adopt children are stigmatized. This means that adoption in general is disincentivized. But this also looks like LGBT women being systemically discriminated against because they can't have biological children, because biological procreation is the only means through which it is legitimate to have children. But second, it suggests that the only purpose of sexual relations and sex is procreation. The idea that the point of you being able to pursue a sexual life is to fulfill that thing which makes your life the most rewarding ever. Fulfill the ability of you as a woman to have a child. This means it's stigmatizing, it denies women access to sexual pleasure of their own and sexual autonomy, perpetuates the idea that only men can enjoy sex. In the most extreme cases, it looks like actively denying the ability of women to make these choices through things like female genital mutilation. But it also means that LGBT individuals are discriminated against because they are not allowed to pursue their sexual pleasure because it can never truly result in you having a child. It means their relationships are now meaningless. We agree that the narrative of women, of the gender roles of women exist on both sides. But this narrative of this being a rewarding experience for women makes it much worse for all of these women because the belief that women have to get meaning from their motherhood gives birth to an egregious burden. We're very proud of it.
8 minutes, 16 seconds. I would like to thank the second speaker for the
the panel. Notice that the second speaker of Team India didn't actually correct the false characterization from their side. They still haven't answered how their case is only catering to the point about gender roles being destructive for women. We concede the fact that gender roles are a bad thing and women would probably be better off if they had more choices. They still have to prove why the societal pressure wouldn't exist. Their point still remains about you being asked, when are you going to have a child or when are you going to get married? Because the whole society still sees you having a child as a necessity and something that you need to do. The point isn't about whether we see a child being given born to as a reward for the society. They need to prove why we telling the mother that you are going to reward from having a child is good or bad. We tell you that the perception of telling a woman that in the instance where you do have a child, you are going to benefit more than you're going to get harm is good for those women. They are only talking about the fact we shouldn't tell women to have children at all, which is obviously going to happen under their side as well, and that's something that the second speaker actually concedes. No, thank you. In this speech, we're first going to have 2 points revealed concerning our case, then moving on to rebuttal, and finally talking about our extension, why in the historical context it has always been important for women to have this role, and how this has created more benefits for women than harm. Starting with revealing. They give 2 answers to our first argument. Firstly, tell you that this duty will still exist, but this perpetuates these gender roles because of the fact that you don't have information and you can't answer to these roles because you're always told that this is a good thing. Firstly, it's said even if this is not told to be a good thing, they're obviously going to be forced to do so. They don't really answer the point about civilizations wanting to prosper and survive. These are more important things for these people, and any society in the world tells women to have children. They never really answer the argumentation that we provide to you, and simply continue with their own case, never engaging and reacting with the things that we provide to you. But furthermore, notice that we can give women information while saying that you're going to reward more from having a child. We can still tell you that you might have postmortem depression, but it will pay you off in the end because you as a woman will benefit from creating someone and for caring for that someone, and you're going to be happy once you have that child. That this is a narrative that can exist with that information, and if that's their problem, then let's fix that. This isn't a reason to regret the whole emotion, and they never actually prove why that's so. But furthermore, they say that these policies are going to be worse off because when this is where you are told that motherhood is rewarding, then no one actually cares about you. Notice that these policymakers also understand that you are rewarding from the thing that you are doing, which means that you are creating some kind of benefit for the state. We told you that in our first argument, and because of the fact that you're creating benefits, you're going to be cared for more, and policymakers will make policies for you. They never answer this line of argumentation, and we need engagement from Team India for them to have a chance in this bet. Concerning our second argument, they never give you an explanation of why these children won't be better off and why it won't be easier to bear your child in the instance we actually know that in the end it will be worth it. They never actually engage with this argumentation. We tell them that it's easier for women to deal with postmortem depression in the instance where they know that in the end it will be worth it and they won't feel as bad as they would under their side when they are given an ideology of that child not being worth it and you having done harm to yourself for no good reason and you're never going to get benefit from the thing that you're experiencing at the moment. No, thank you, not yet. So they therefore think that our case still stands and Team India hasn't actually given us any conclusive responses in terms of our case. Moving on to their own case and the things that we heard from Team India. We first to tell you that people have very little know-how and that this harms them. We already told you it's easier for you to deal with these things that you might go through. In the instance, we are told that this is always going to be worth it. They tell you that women can't pursue their dreams, which I think that it's always going to exist under their side, because the first speaker's mother would still have been told to have a child and get married. But furthermore, notice that women might dream of having a child, and that's a legitimate dream for those women as well. That might give self-actualization to some women, and they are actively saying that these women shouldn't get self-actualization from that place. We think that they are giving less legitimacy to those women's dreams, and that's something that the maybe shouldn't be doing. We think that in the instance of today's society, motherhood is becoming more volatile, and you can be a mother while achieving those dreams as well, but we don't have to actively undermine the glorification or the value of being a mother in the conventional sense. We think that this is a benefit that they are taking away from the women in our societies at the moment. They then want to tell you an extension about how women who are currently using counterproductives are going to be worse off. In the instance where they concede to the fact that this duty to have children already exists, then those women are always going to be harmed under their side as well. They're still told to have children, and all of the harms that they tell you about in their extension will remain in the instance where they concede to the fact that this duty still exists for these women, and we don't think they're actually improving any of the cases that they outline in their extension. then they tell you that you are raised to believe, and this is the only thing that's going to be rewarding for you, think that this is good because in the end it might still be good for you. They tell you that it takes away financial independence and friends from these women, but we don't see why that's true. They are giving a very cruel characterization of motherhood. You can still go to work as a mother, and you can still have friends that you had before. This characterization is simply not true, and Team India isn't telling you why it should be true. Because mothers are still human beings and can still interact with other people outside of their family. We don't think that they're simply closed off to their child that they have had. We don't think that this is a characterization that they can get away with in this way. Before moving on to an extension, go.
Do you support the narrative in developing nations that say that women should find it rewarding to be homemakers and cook and clean for their husbands?
I'm going to tell you why that's beneficial in this argument now. I think it's beneficial for those women to have that role than have no role at all. Moving on to an extension. So tell you that this debate is about whether motherhood is seen as good or bad, whether it is seen as rewarding for these women or not. We think that we need to consider the historical aspect and the developing nations in these lines of argumentation as well. We have already told you how this duty is always going to remain for these women. People want to carry on their civilization or their nation, and only women can fulfill that role, and that is why the duty is always going to remain for them, argumentation that Team India simply doesn't engage with. This role would exist on either side of the house. We now need to look at the fact, how are we portraying these roles, and how are we telling those women to deal with those roles, whether they are rewarding for them or not. I think that it's beneficial to say that women are rewarding from the roles that they currently have. Because notice that this reward isn't only seen as individual. In the instance where doing something rewarding, then it's going to be seen as a reward by those other people as well. In the instance where we are creating a gender role for those women, then because of the fact that you are doing good in providing that gender role, you get some kind of position in that society. In the instance where you are successful as a mother, then you are seen as a good person because of the fact that you are a mother. These women gain some kind of position in these societies because of the fact that they are creating some kind of benefits for those people in those societies. In the instance where those women don't even have a role as a homemaker, and they have much less legitimacy, much less position, much less leverage to ask for some kind of changes for themselves. This is exceptionally exacerbated by the fact that these women are not going to be seen as successful. Their role is always going to be seen as a negative thing that they are never going to get any benefit out of, or that they are never going to be able to create any benefit by. In the instance where this role is rewarding, then those women are actually seen as good actors and seen as people who deserve more rights and who can ask for those rights. The comparative underside opposition, so women are not seen as valuable and are not seen as worthy of anything more because they aren't creating anything beneficial for the society. They are not creating an additional benefit that they can use to ask for additional rights. The perception that exists underside opposition is giving women opportunities to demand more rights and more opportunities for themselves. They play a big role in society already, thus they can see that they deserve more rights because of the role that they have in those societies. They're capable of raising a family, which means that they are capable of doing other things, an understanding or a rhetoric that these women in those countries can use. This also exists in these conservative nations as well. Women in Saudi Arabia can say that I have a role as a woman in your society, give me driving rights as well because I'm capable of running a family, I'm capable of running a car as well. I think that throughout history and in more conservative or developing nations, women are able to use the role that they have inside the family to get more rights in a whole societal scheme. Team has been true to you why motherhood is good for those women and that should be shown as rewarding for all of these reasons, vote opposition.
Let's take a zoomed out look inside opposition space and realize that it only works in a certain specific set of consequences. It it works in a set of scenarios where the men in the household or the people around who perpetuate this narrative actively want to hurt the women in there. My grandmother thought that she was helping my sister when she got her married off early. My parents thought they were working for what my sister actually would have wanted to do when they set her on the course of humanities instead of STEM. Their entire characterization of this oppression would have existed anyway relies on the premise that they wanted to oppress women. We told you that a large number of people aren't doing it to be hateful. They're doing it because they think it's in their daughters' and children's best interest. That entire subset of women, our case wins wholeheartedly. They had no response whatsoever to that. Meanwhile, we dealt with their base case. We told you even if this oppression continues, we perpetuate the voice against that oppression for the first time. They refused to debate the real one, but we took them in the world even where they live. The belief that women have to get meaning from their motherhood gives birth to an egregious burden that we cannot stand for. 3 questions. Firstly, how does this affect women's choices? Secondly, how does this affect women in public or society? And thirdly, how does this affect those who can't have children? On the first question of how does this affect women's choices, we told you that this narrative associates itself with losing information. And they had weird responses to this. They said we oppose that norm. But this is a retrospective debate about what exactly has happened in the past. They needed to tell you of why they thought that over the past centuries, women have had information. And we only got characterization for that in their previous speaker when they said, oh, we'll tell you that you're going to go through depression, but it'll all be worth it. That doesn't sound like fair information, Daniel. That sounds slightly weighted towards one side. At the best case, we tell you, we're the only side that painted a picture of what this looks like. Their assertion that, oh, this isn't it, women can be given oppression, women can be given information on the side, falls because we told you how ubiquitous it is. Because we told you how when you are a child, you are growing up hearing this, where you can't question it, where everyone doesn't want to talk about the bad side because overwhelmingly it's a good thing and we don't want to criticize what everyone considers to be good. That was the world that created less information for women, pushing them into harmful pregnancies when they would not or might not have fully wanted to. We were the only side that enabled that choice. But secondly, on coercion and pressure, they said there will always be other pressures. Physically, women are the only ones who can have it, and you're pressurizing women in society anyway. We responded to this by, through our characterization, why this is the significant cause of it. The vast majority of people don't want to be actively hateful to women nowadays, but rather they think they're doing it for the women. They think I'm doing it for my daughter. That entire subset of people they drop. But notice, we engaged with their best case. We said the difference is that these are pressures you can fight, when now women are told that what's being pushed on you is something you don't like, rather than having the excuse of this isn't oppression because you ought to be enjoying this. That is the word that they stood for. Note that we were the only side that told you that when the narrative isn't you are enjoying it, only then society knows it's a problem. Only then society is likely to fight against it. We had this in our previous speakers, and they pretended in their third speech like we weren't the ones who were responding to their world. No, thank you. But furthermore, other people buy into this pressure. That is the way funding works, right? The way funding works when you fund your daughters to go into humanities versus STEM, and the way you think that you're acting for them. Most of these choices that push women into motherhood are made before women can voice complaints. And why that matters is because of the fact that the people, the guardians who are making these choices, actively think that they're doing it for the women. The women have little ability to object, and the women have little ability to go get other information. That's why it's likely that this is the strongest version of the various oppressionist forces that act on women that forces them into motherhood without any reconciliation. And lastly, let's just deal with that idea that men oppress women because it's sex, because they're all sexist. No, thank you. We told you it's not a reasonable characterization. But furthermore, we tell you, in our second point, I'll prove you how even in those cases, we better help the women who are stuck in these homes. So second question, how does this affect the women? Now, let's take them once more on the absolute best case, and let's look at it. Women are still stuck in the home. What changes then? The narrative no longer is that I as a man don't need to help you out because, well, you're enjoying what you're doing, right? I don't need to help you in any way. It becomes motherhood is a burden that you need not necessarily enjoy, and that means me as a father now should try to pitch in as much as I can, much more than I can. That's why their side made motherhood worse. When you're forced handling 5 kids all on your own without anyone to care for you, we were the only side that removed father's excuse for not staying at home by saying, oh, you're enjoying it, so I'll let you have all the kids to yourself. That was the world that we contested, taking them on their very best case, the women who stayed in these homes as well. What were the arguments that they brought up to you? They said that this makes women look stronger and better in society. But does it? You admire soldiers because they're sacrificing something and you don't assume that they're having a good time. You admire soldiers because you think they're doing something hard. This is the exact opposite. You're saying women are enjoying themselves. Why should we care for that? Yes, it's hard, but like the reward is even more. Yes, there's depression, but it's worth it at the end, in their very own words. How are you admiring mothers anymore? Rather, you're saying that they enjoy themselves. This is something that they're doing for their own selfish self-interest. That's not the narrative that we want to push. And that's why all of their ideas on how women can ask for more rights falls. Two responses directly to their second speaker's argument. Firstly, assume that they had the argument on how this empowers women by making them role models. This non-economic work. They have very little money to lobby. They have very little ability to put themselves up in society. That's why their version of how women get uplifted is what we've been trying for the past 3 centuries. And surprise, surprise, it hasn't worked. What has worked is having women in businesses, having women as CEOs, which means that is the most uplifting form of empowerment that you can give them. Yes.
We might agree that women in businesses are beneficial. You need to prove why without creating a base rate for these women, they wouldn't even have had access to getting into those businesses to change something.
Okay, like this entire idea that the society is so oppressive that no woman works anywhere in the world is simply false. Note that we've continuously told you that the main reason why women are pushed into having children is this narrative that they enjoyed themselves. They've never realized, they've never tried to deal with that, which is why we think at the end of the day, they haven't proved that all women are going to be oppressed anyway. Now, lastly on the idea that women themselves enjoy it, here's the thing, panel. We aren't against women enjoying motherhood. We're against them being told that they have to enjoy it, refuse to question it, and moving out of it. What that means is they don't make it easier for women, they burden them even more when they are pushed and refuse to have the ability to question it. Lastly, the third question, about those who don't have kids. Panel, there was literally no engagement on this from their side. We give you 2 arguments on how there are people, the most vulnerable people, who cannot have children or who don't want to have children. Those who do abortions are now shamed because they're told you're giving up a pleasure of your life. Why should we allow you to do this? That is what Republicans say when they say we're not going to allow this abortion legislature because women don't know what they want, what they should deserve the most. Children help them out. We won't let them take these children away. A huge argument on the most vulnerable people, on LGBT individuals, on people who want to actually avoid having children was completely dropped from their side of the house. And that means that they don't care about choice, panel, because they refuse to deal with the argument that condemn those who actively made the choice not to. That means that theirs was a side that didn't realize that the vast majority of the oppression, the forcing women to have children without questioning it or being able to make choices for themselves, comes from the idea that they enjoy it. The vast majority of society saying we're not going to try to make life better for you because staying at home is probably really happy right now comes from this idea that they're enjoying themselves. And the disenfranchised people, largely in number and the most vulnerable, are hurt when they don't want to have children, but you tell them that they made the wrong choice. Those are the important people in the debate. The belief that women have to get meaning from their motherhood gives birth to an egregious burden.
I would like to thank the third speaker on the opposition for your speech and would like to invite the third speaker of the opposition to deliver their speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, gender roles are still going to exist under both of our worlds. We think that proposition is just going to enforce these gender roles with attaching no added beneficial value to those women actually being in those roles. We think that they are putting these women into these roles and they are enforcing the belief that these women should stay in that domestic environment because they get no added benefit. They can't actually leave that domestic environment because we don't see them as actually getting any sort of reward out of it. They say that they characterize a real world where women are oppressed, but we think that this would have existed under them as well. Their alternative world can't be one where women aren't oppressed. We think that women will still be seen as childbearers. We think that they still would have had conservative societies. Know that rewarding experience doesn't mean enjoyment of that experience. It just means that we acknowledge the hardship that it is, and we see that you actually get some sort of beneficial values from it, and that you as a person have grown. We attribute some sort of positive benefits to you as having done that, and we think that this is where we actually where we can actually enforce the role that women have in our society. No, thank you. I want to talk about two things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to look at why gender roles will still persist irrespective of glorification, and then secondly, I'm going to look at what are the tangible harms when we don't perceive motherhood as rewarding. So first off, why these gender roles are still going to exist? What were their two first arguments? Firstly, that motherhood removes some sort of autonomy from women and they have to quit their career, and then secondly, that women are forced into the same roles they're individually not allowed to have a social life. This is basically the same argument, and moreover, we think that this is all, that both of these things also exist under the proposition team, and they are both rebutted by us talking about the fact that gender roles are going to exist because firstly, like historically, women have a duty to bring up children. This is something that has happened in societies because men did physical work while women were just domestic, and women gave birth to children, which means that this will fundamentally still exist under societies. No, thank you. Secondly, all societies want to be sustainable, even in the present. We've talked about this in all of our speeches, but for example, that many countries pay mothers to have children. We still have that duty. With these women still have that responsibility. This all means that women are still going to be forced into these roles, and all the harms that they talked about of having to quit your career, no thank you, having to take a man very early in your life, are still going to exist. But moreover, what we have talked about is that these gender roles are even going to be entrenched under proposition, and this is because women, this is only going to be perceived as women are only fulfilling the duty that we have given to them in society. No, thank you. Because of two main impacts. Firstly, we don't see them being pregnant because they want to, but because we just as a society want for them to bear that child, which means that we don't recognise the autonomy of women to make independent decisions about their life. When it is something that is actually rewarding, no thank you, then we recognise that this is something that is part of women's autonomy, and we think that this is something how we overall attain some sort of societal change. Secondly, we also when it's not rewarding, then we don't recognise that these women have some sort of personal growth when going through such a hardship of actually bringing up a child. No, thank you. The impact of all of this is that it is harder for women to portray themselves as strong, equal individuals in our society, which means that all of the harms that they talked about are going to be so much greater. But lastly, under this point, one more thing. They talked about infertile women and LGBT women, and then asserted that we didn't respond. This is not true. We already said that all of these problems that are associated with these groups are going to exist under their side, as they are also not filling the role that women are given in society, which means that these people are still going to be seen as worse off, are still going to be negatively perceived. This is a symmetrical argument. This group shouldn't exist in this debate. Moving on to my next point about what are the actual tangible harms when we don't perceive motherhood as rewarding. But before that, Sean.
In your best case, where gender roles still exist and women stay in families, why is it worse when women can now question these roles and fight to share burdens?
Yeah, I'm getting onto that. So they talk a lot about the fact that women can't mobilise because men see it as something positive, and also something about misinformation. You need to look at the fact of why do men oppress women in societies. This is because they feel that they are supreme to women. And now we need to look at under which team do men feel more supreme to women, and under which team do men perceive women as worse off. Under us, women are seen as benefiting from motherhood, a duty that is going to be given them under any case. This means that under us, women are going to be perceived as a stronger social group, one that more justifiably should have a voice in our society. What is going to happen under them is that women get no sort of benefits. It is not rewarding. They don't improve as individuals, which means that we don't perceive them as strong individuals. This means that this also contributes to a domestic narrative of them only being in that role. They shouldn't exit that role because they didn't get any sort of benefits from being in that role, which is something much different what happens under our case. But now they also talk about the fact that men don't understand why reproductive rights are important anyway, and that they're just going to force them down. But we think that men will never understand why reproductive rights are important when women don't have a voice. Women are the agents who are going to tell men when reproductive rights are important. This is how it has happened in our society. Women need empowerment for them to have a voice. We as a society and men overall need to acknowledge that women can be strong individuals. They need that they can be successful at something. We need to give them this political voice, and we think that their alternative narrative is that giving birth and bringing up a child is just some sort of mutual duty. So we don't feel that will attribute something positive to them. We also don't understand that if it's seen as just a neutral duty for women, then why would men help? Why would all of their conservative narratives disappear? We think that men will still see it as something that is inherently for women, and they're not going to be contributing in parenting, so we don't believe any of that argumentation. But what else did they say? Overall they said that women don't know how hard childbirth is. But we say, and overall that rewarding experiences inherently means enjoyment. But we think that when we look at reality, then society does know how hard it is to bring up babies and then toddlers and kids and teenagers, and that is a very time consuming. You have to bring up a child for 18 years. No one thinks that it's an easy job. And we think that if we see this job as actually rewarding, then we acknowledge the hardship that women have to go through. It is a false characterization to say that we see that women enjoy this. It is the fact that we understand that it is hard, and we understand that they benefit greatly from it, and that we are acknowledging this hardship, which means that we understand that women are strong and capable, which leads to overall two things. Firstly, it means that it's going to be easier for women to actually be in society, so that for example, employers see them as deserving of a job or deserving of a promotion, and things like that. So it's easy for women to actually participate in society and not be oppressed. But secondly, we think that it's also for women individually, as being people who have this role and duty anyway, that they perceive their own hardship as beneficial anyway. So that the comparative is that if they have this duty and they don't perceive their hardship as beneficial, then it is much harder for them to actually do that duty. They don't want to do it. They feel themselves as more oppressed, which means that this is going to lead to a more overall internalization of the fact that they are oppressed in that society, which will make it harder for women to actually try and get that political voice that they need. Moreover, it will mean that there will be a larger proportion of women who see bringing up children as a duty as something negative, which means there will be a larger proportion of children who don't have a very nice upbringing, because it is seen as a duty, not something loving, not something caring, something that we talked about in our second argument. For all of these reasons, I'm very happy to oppose. Thank you.
8 minutes, 7 seconds. I'd like to thank the third speaker of the opposition for their speech, and would like to invite the reply speaker of the opposition to do their speech.
Dear panel, Team India doesn't really give you a holistic view of the debate. They provide you with arguments why often women struggle when having children, why their chances might be limited, why they might have, to some extent, a worse life because of having a child. They provide you with very few arguments that are exclusive to this motion, that tell you why we shouldn't look at having a child as a rewarding thing, and why these women are going to benefit in the instance where they have had a child, when having a child is not looked as a rewarding thing. They haven't actually dealt with the understanding from Team Estonia that tells you that the duty to have children will always exist for these women, and it's easier to deal with this duty in the instance where you are being rewarded for having had that child, and where you will have a better life in the instance where you are seen as creating a benefit instead of creating something that's neutral or harmful for the society. This debate comes to two main things. First, we'll talk about the characterization of motherhood and the many ideas that we have concerning how we perceive motherhood in society, and secondly, how Team Estonia wins on those grounds. And secondly, we'll talk about the position of women in the general society, and how Team Estonia has given you stronger analysis on how women are going to prosper in the instance where motherhood is actually being seen as a rewarding thing. Let's first look at the characterization of motherhood. We hear quite many things from TV media. They tell us that people coerce women into having children because they actually think they are helping all of these women, and this is something that wouldn't exist under their side. This isn't actually true. They never actually deal with the fact that these people think that these women have a duty to have that child. They would still tell all of the same things to these women that they have described in their speeches. They would always still tell these women that you need to have a child because that's what you are meant to do. No matter whether this is beneficial or harmful for these women, people would always expect that from these women because we have given you a strong analysis about why people always think that women should bear those children as they are the only ones who can do that, and thus ensure the fact that this civilization or this nation is going to exist in the future. They never actually engage with this argumentation and simply say that because it is seen as beneficial, people are more inclined to do it, but never tell you why this inclination to actually make women have children wouldn't exist under their side of the house. But they also have contradicting stances about this duty idea that we provide you, because the second speaker says they concede to the fact that this duty exists. The third speaker, however, completely dismisses this idea and simply talks about the fact that, that motherhood is seen as a rewarding thing. They needed to deal with this argumentation rather than simply dismiss it and not engage with it, something which is an analysis that we didn't get from side proposition in this debate. They then tell you that it's hard to be a mother because you have little information about what it means to be a mother. It's probably known what it's like to be a mother. Eventually people understand what being a mother looks like, and we also give you analysis on why people are aware of this hardship and thus reward mother more because of the hardship that they are going through, and this hardship is known to these people. You obviously see mothers having swollen ankles or having postmortem depression, thus you know about the hardships of motherhood, even if you have a pamphlet about it, etc. They tell you that mothers have very limited opportunities, which is an untrue characterization that we constantly refuted and said the mothers can have a normal life. And furthermore, the point about some being not able to have children is not exclusively to our side, and it's not a harm that they are actually dealing with because of the fact that this duty exists. They aren't changing the conception of motherhood, thus all of the harms that they point out to you exist under their side as well. We give you a strong analysis on why the position of women is stronger under our side for two reasons. Firstly, it can be seen as important underside opposition because of the fact that you as a mother create social position for yourself, create social leverage to influence some kinds of things. Women would be seen as more inferior under their side because they don't actually create something that is beneficial for the general society, but also are seen as more inferior because they're simply doing something that men are telling them to do, but is very harmful for the women. Under our side, women are doing something that's beneficial for them and seen as rewarding. Thus women can say that I am doing things for my own benefits and for my interests, giving more leverage to the ideas that they have. But furthermore, they have earned a strong position because of the fact that they have motherhood. The extension that I had was completely unanswered by side proposition. Ladies and gentlemen, motherhood is a good thing and we should reward it, and this is great benefits for women, thus opposed. Thank you.
4 minutes, 18 seconds. I would like to thank the reply speaker of the opposition, and I would like to invite the reply speaker of the opposition to deliver their speech.
Second opposition speaker says, yes, we want to tell women that it's beneficial for them to be homemakers, to stay at home, to clean the house, to cook. They say, oh, we support patriarchal gender roles being glorified because we want women to have some role. But they fail to realize that this glorification is where the problem begins, is what creates and perpetuates these gender roles. We say, no, we can fight this as a feminist. We can call this out. We can empower individual women to have voices. Whereas on your side it said, oh, this is not a problem. This is something that women enjoy. This is something that's beautiful. This is something that constitutes womanhood. That's why we told you that the belief that women have to get meaning from their motherhood gives birth to an egregious burden. Two questions. First, is the pressure to be a mother a choice? And second, on which side is the future female? First, on the pressurehood to be a mother. Set this up as a very narrow opposition, right? They say, in a world where women make the free choices, where there is no external pressure, with this magical information, in that world, we think women can be happy. Not only did we stand for choice and accurate information, what they didn't recognize that a concept of a widespread belief is that family and society also believes in this and make choices for you when you're 6 on this basis. That the idea of a widespread belief is not that when you have a child, along with a goose bringing your baby, it will also bring this idea into your head. But from the time you grow up, you are told that this is something this is all that you can aspire to. But it was internally contradictory. They said, yeah, you'll be depressed, but it'll be worth it. Because what they failed to recognize is the nuanced material we brought you across the bench when we told you that you don't have a choice to enter these marriages, to enter these kinds of to motherhood. But you also don't have a choice to leave commensurately. When you're asked, no, you have to stay for the child. Not only did they not respond to this, they're falling back to the idea that, oh no, gender roles and this kind of trapping will still exist. Fail to recognize that for, our worst case, a huge sum of the 4 billion women that are in the world, we extend the choice to leave. We extend the choice to not enter, and in just of that, we think this makes this motion regrettable. What they also didn't say, but the response to this was, no, women will be strong because they're mothers, and that's good, right? Not only was this idea problematic, because the idea of creating women as strong was because they are our mothers and because of relationships to men. Not only was this problematic, because they said women who aren't mothers then can be seen as not good women, as not good mothers, as women who work aren't doing the right priorities. They also didn't realize that men don't make these choices because they think they're supreme. I don't say, I'm better than my daughter, so I'm going to give her a worse education. It's because of my belief that motherhood is great that I feel like I'm helping her out. By helping her be a mother, I'm helping her be happy. By giving her a humanities education, I'm helping her be happy. By saving for a marriage, I'm helping her be happy. I think that's where this is born, and that's why it was problematic. They failed to realize that this is where gender roles begin. It was problematic. But second, on which side is the future female? We were very generous to them. When they said things like, oh, women will have personal growth, or that they have an inclination to fulfill their duty for the civilization, we let them off the hook, right? But we also engage with our worst case. When they told us that they perceive women as strong, women are perceived as weak because they're given and condemned to carry roles, right? They said, you are weak and can only be a mother. We told you, if you want strong women, choice is what creates women who are seen as strong. When women can become successful, that's what creates the idea and breaks the gender roles that you described. Problematically, they never showed why were individual women were happy, nor did they show why women being happy caused this link to changing perceptions in the first case. But even in our worst case, even when women are stuck in these relationships, we gave you 4 benefits. That they have a voice, that they get to share the burden, that they get some mobility to leave, and they get some social life rather than living around their children. In the reality, they didn't fight for individual women with careers. Employers who didn't give maternity leave. They didn't fight as a feminist organization this perception, for abortions, for infertile women, for LGBT women. We stood on the side of the most vulnerable. The debate of what our future of our girls should be. If the question is what do women want, we say let them decide.